Welcome to the first episode of Keyhole Storytelling. My name is Darren Horn, and I'm here with my first guest. We are going to be, the whole show is inspired by a quote from one of my favorite Marvel films, Doctor Strange. And the quote is, "You're a man looking at the universe through a keyhole." And that stayed with me. That's kind of how I'm living my life now, just trying to find my blind spots and try and see the world through someone else's perspective. So I'm delighted to be joined by Asa Leveaux, who is I know very little about you other than you're a Facebook friend. So I really want to appreciate the fact that I added you or you added me at some point in the past, because you are, if I described myself as, a Southerner living in the north of England, white, straight, cisgender guy, you're pretty much not like that. So can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So the first thing is, thank you for having me on.
No problem.
I do not take people saying yes to me or inviting me lightly. I remember a time when I was not always invited. So I just want to say thank you for that.
No.
For those of you who are listening and or watching, thank you as well. Thank you for coming here. I acknowledge your presence. Being from Oklahoma in the United States, we have a thing. We make sure that we speak to everyone in the room when we enter a room, a virtual one or a physical one. So hello to you. If you don't know who I am, my name is Asa Leveaux. I am from America, from a state called Oklahoma. What I do for money, or what do I do for a living? I help entrepreneurs create their first $10,000 in an authentic way. That's what I do. A lot of times people come up to me and they want to start businesses. They don't know how to launch it. They don't know how to start. They don't know what the first thing. And I provide the solution. I provide the answer to their prayer in that way, in that moment. What I do in the world, besides what I do for a living, because most of us, there is a difference. There's what we get paid to do that we like, if you finally have that ability to like what you do, and then what we were born to do. And so what I was born to do, I was born to create the aha moment in beautiful humans, letting them know that they really are divinely limitless.
That's superb. That is absolutely superb. And it's really interesting hearing you speak, because a lot of this conversation is going to be me being ignorant. So are you in Oklahoma now?
I am in Oklahoma right now, yes.
So what's Oklahoma like? I have no, even what's outside your window? Is it like big cities?
No, I totally get that. So I have been to Europe, as well as a few other continents and countries within those continents. So Oklahoma, think about the grassiness, the green that is Ireland.
Oh, nice.
But then take your hand and smush it flat. Totally smack everything down. And that's what Oklahoma looks like. Beautiful skies. Because it's so flat, you have a sky that just goes on forever. It goes on forever. The houses are very much suburban, as far as what you may see on a television show or something like that. We have a lot of suburban areas, and of course we have a lot of rural areas. So towns of 1,000 people.
Oh, nice.
Livestock. There's definitely an agricultural presence in the state. That's what, for the most part, Oklahoma looks like. I was born and raised here, so this is home for me. But I love traveling. I totally adore traveling. So I am addicted to seeing new places. But yeah, that's what Oklahoma looks like. And so outside of my window, I live in a neighborhood in a suburb that is about an 8-minute drive from downtown Oklahoma City. So not too far away from me are skyscrapers,
All right.
People living on, literally on top of one another, nightclubs and all of those things.
Nice. That sounds great. And did you enjoy growing up there? You call it home, so
Oh yes, this is definitely home. And I've also realized going around the world is that no matter what happened to you growing up, home is home.
yeah, sure.
Home is home. And so for the majority, yes, Oklahoma was it's a it's a quality place to raise a child.
Nice. And you've got a child, haven't you? You've got a son?
I do. I have a son. He's 14 years old.
Oh wow.
Um, yes.
How
Um,
how's that? I've got a 4-year-old daughter, so it's 14.
yes, I have a decade of a head start with that. I will be so in everything that I do, my goal is to be transparent. I never desire to put a rule over anyone's face or a veil and then act as though everything is perfect in my life. I don't want to do that because it doesn't serve us. I desire to connect. So I say that because I love my child, but like right now, we aren't talking.
Okay.
He has an issue with his dad. And growing up at 14, I had an issue with my dad. And that is something that is just being worked out. I wish I love my son. And it's not like I don't love him. It's just something that has to take its course. I've talked to other parents, and when they come off of social media, they do tell me, but when they're on social media, they never do. And so I want to make sure that people that are going through that are having, adolescent children, pre-adolescents, teenagers, that, you know what, sometimes things aren't going exactly the way, but guess what? When they're not going exactly the way, all that is information of what you really want. And so now I get to choose something different.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think of it, it's all just data, and
It's all data. Yep.
um, yeah. That's so. At the moment, do you mind talking about like why is there the rift? Is it why is it?
Sure. Okay, so if you are an influencer,
Yeah.
if you are someone that has said, you know what, I'm going to expose the world I'm in for the benefit of others.
Mm-hmm.
If you make up in your mind for that, get ready. Because right now, it's this thing. Are you being my dad and loving me because you love me? Or are you being my dad and loving me to make a Facebook post?
Yeah.
And so it's the conversation that I've had with myself when I went through something called the dark night of the soul. You're almost pissed off with the reflection that is looking back at you.
Yeah.
And so when another person is also upset with the image of you, part of that is the image that you gave them, and then there's a part of the image that they created.
Mm.
So I desire for there to be an emergence of the person that he may have created with the person that is actually present and available. You have to remember, if you're in this space and you want to be public, our children and our family members and our friends didn't ask for this life. So we have to protect their privacy. We have to not do things just based on clout, based on getting a like.
Yeah.
And so I definitely, prior to he and I, like this happened for the last 3 weeks. So it hasn't been like 3 years. It's just been like 3 weeks. So what I've done before that, I totally stopped talking about him, like when I do Facebook posts, and things of that nature. So yeah, we are all doing our best. I'm doing my best. He's doing his best. But what I want for him is that he's smiling right now, that he's enjoying life right now. And guess what? He could be doing all those things even without me.
Yeah. I've had not exactly the same, but we've had conversations because to start with, our daughter was in a lot of social media and people like seeing her, but you know, she's
Mm-hmm.
getting 4 now, and you think, well, do I really want this content out there for when she's going to school and people are going to see it? But she still, even I think yesterday I did a live and she crashed it and she was in it with me. But then I said it to friends only and not global, because
Right.
it's, you know, it's her image as well. It's yeah, it can be a struggle. Okay, so there's a lot going on in the world with Black Lives Matter. I did not ask you on as a guest purely because you are Black. I've asked other people as well. But I just love the way you were coming across on social media. So what's your take on it?
Do Black lives matter? Do they? My answer to that is yes. And please, anyone that's listening, no one is ever saying or ever even suggesting that just because a Black life could, and I say could because in all minds they don't. So yes, even though a Black life could matter, it does not negate the fact that everybody else's lives matter as well. But when your grandma is about to pass away and ascend from this life to the next, and you go on social media and you ask your friends for prayers, love, and light for your grandma, who was the best grandma, and she's about to take her last breath, what you don't want in that moment is for someone to say, all grandmas matter.
Yeah.
Because right now we're not talking about your grandma. That can be a very egocentric idea, to come into where someone else is needing support, and then you interject yourself, even though you don't need support, by saying, I matter too. Well, we know that, and we're glad you're here. But right now, the focus is shifting on someone else that may need some assistance.
Yeah, it feels like a really common way to try and devalue an argument. Like I've talked about mental health in the past, or if you talk about domestic violence even, particularly with women, there's always the person who says, oh, but you know, guys get hit too. It's like, yeah, but we were talking, that situation, we were talking about the women, and
Yeah,
it's a bigger issue. I know guys get hurt as well, but yeah, I've seen a lot of the All Lives Matter stuff, and thankfully, hopefully the education is growing, just how bad the situation is, even in the UK. Right? It's once you start scratching the surface, I'm seeing a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that about the UK. I've been to the UK. Of course, I was like in London, not in Ireland, but a lot of times when I would talk to a Black person in the UK, and I would ask about their stories, because I'm a hostel person. I love hostels. I adore hostels because at the end of a trip, you will have people that might even cry that you're leaving. Like you guys connected over like a drink, or you went out or had a pub crawl. And so I love those type of connections when I travel. And so I've been asking people, this whole time, what do you think about what's it like there? And sometimes their experiences are a lot more based in struggle than mine.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's up in where I live in Cumbria. It's predominantly white. It's just yeah, and where I used to live down in the south coast in Plymouth, in Devon, predominantly white. It's okay. So I've also seen that you're. Am I right in saying that you're Christian? Is that
So the way that I identify spiritually, I was raised Christian in Christianity, within a denomination called the Church of God in Christ. The Church of God in Christ is the denomination born out of the United States, but are in other countries. It's the closest thing to being Black Amish.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What that from the context of this particular denomination, the women are not allowed to wear makeup. The women are not allowed to wear pants. The men are not allowed to wear shorts. My parents, when they were together growing up, they could not attend their high school prom. You can't go to the movies. Like it's very rigid. It's a very rigid existence. And so I grew up that way. Both my parents were pastors at a time. My mother still is a pastor. And so, but then I had to realize, wow, okay, what am I going to do? How do I see the world? How do I see my interaction with people? And then how do I see the hereafter? I had to ask myself all those different things, which looks like going through existential angst, the dark night of the soul for myself. And then when I emerged from that, I was very clear. I am a love-based disciple. If love is on the menu, I will sit at the table.
That's a superb way of putting it. So do you there's some of those kind of Christian teachings, do you still kind of class yourself as a Christian, or
No.
you don't? Oh wow, okay.
I do not consider myself a Christian because, of course, when you're a preacher's kid, you know about reading the Bible and you know how to understand it. Because I was being groomed at the age of 11 to be a preacher.
Wow.
So I gave my first sermon at 12.
Wow.
Right. I've been speaking a long time.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I recognize, and I finally like, oh, okay, the question is, what makes you Christian?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah, totally.
Participating in communion, that doesn't make you Christian. Wearing a cross around your neck, that doesn't make you Christian. Totally. What makes you Christian is, do you believe that Jesus the Christ came down, was born, performed miracles, died on a cross, was buried 2 to 3, it depends on how you see math, 2 to 3 days later, rose again, and now lives in heaven with his heavenly Father, waiting to come back again for you. If you don't believe that, you are not a Christian. That's how it was interpreted to me.
Okay.
And that's what I asked a few ministers, pastors, other Christians, like, what makes you Christian? And we had to understand, like, now, of course, there are denominations within Christianity that take what I said and they leave off parts. So for instance, if you are Catholic, you may not necessarily believe in the total resurrection. He died, he died for us, and now we honor his death. And if you're someone else, you may take the whole rapture part off. If you're but for the majority, that's what you pack in. Yeah. That's the Christianity. And I, being a traveler, a citizen of the world, I chose not to continue that thought. And the reason why is because I would see monks in other places and wonder, if they are taking a vow of silence and they are being nice to even bugs and insects, why do I think that they are going to burn in hell because they do not believe and then say with their mouth that Jesus is God, even though they know who Jesus is? But because they do not profess with their mouth, now they're going to hell. That doesn't make good sense to me.
That's a much excellent answer. I really appreciate that you answered in that way. It's okay. I thought what you were going to say is, I'm a Christian, but I just focus on the love part and like the forgiveness. I don't really. But it's interesting. It's interesting now in 2020 because it feels like atheism is on the rise. Certainly in the UK, I think we're over 50% now, and there's people
really?
like Ricky Gervais and Stephen Fry. There's a lot of people in public, lots of comedians particularly, who are challenging the idea that there's a God.
Lots of comedians, yes.
Yeah, and comedians are frustratingly popular, so they obviously influence the younger generation. So I'm curious now, I guess, about people's beliefs, because it feels like it's more an active decision to choose. It doesn't feel, it feels like easier to get out of like your family programming almost. So
It
someone
is,
said,
but please know this too, and I have no idea how you identify. This is just for the sake of conversation. I do not, I did not leave Christianity and then said, you know what, the entire religion should belong in the dumpster.
yeah,
I did not say that. I still to this day listen to gospel music. I still, there's a part of me that wants to wake up on a Sunday morning and watch like a TD Jakes on TV, which is he's a well-known preacher in United States. And there's nothing wrong with me going to a church every now and again, just because it's really familiar to me. I put a lot of years in church. And even though, of course, you know, there was some hurt in church, but there was some hurt in every facet of my life, no matter where I was, from school to home. And I didn't throw those things away. So I don't ever want to remember something that helped mold me and then say, you know what, I'm going to write it off completely.
sorry.
I don't ever want to do that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. If you've been to the UK, like the churches here are really old, they're gorgeous, just phenomenal. And I do, I've no, I don't give that much thought into the structure of what I believe. I'm just kind of moving through time, and I'd like you just try to be curious and compassionate and loving. And I'm obsessed with that. I think there's an image called the blue marble, and it's the Earth taken from like a space station or an astronaut, and it's just this tiny blue marble floating in space, and we're all on it, and we've got the infinite universe around us, and we're all, some people are fighting over land or resources. It's like, in fact, I saw a quote today. It was from the first, I wish I could remember her name, the first Black woman who was an astronaut, and she just said, she was like, once I was up in space, I just felt like I belonged. I just felt like I was connected to the universe, and I love that kind of epiphany. It's phenomenal. The other thing I was going to say, because you identify as queer, that's right, isn't it?
I identify, so within the context of what it means to be LGBTQ plus, I identify as, when people ask me, so what are you? I say queer. Why do I say queer? Even though that for some people has an embedded negativity within that word.
Yeah.
The reason why I say
that.
for me personally, queer allows me to be all things to all people at all times.
Sure.
And it also doesn't pigeonhole me. So queer can be a lot of different things. Queer could be a lesbian, queer could be a trans person. Queer is like the umbrella term,
Sure.
possible for some people. For me, it's an umbrella term. Queer for me is synonymous with being free.
Nice. Interesting.
So when I say I'm queer, I identify as being queer, yeah, I identify as being free. And however, then there's the P, LGBTQ plus, and that plus there's a P over there, and that stands for pansexual. And so that's, if you want to say like, what am I in those letters? I'm pansexual. Yeah.
And what does pansexual mean?
Pansexual or omnisexual means you like pretty people.
Nice.
You're attracted, like you are attracted to people. So like imagine, what would I be if I was attracted to a person who had transitioned from being a man to a woman, and then while they were a woman, they dressed up as a man, and they were attracted to women. That's a lot of brain going,
yeah.
So how do you say that? Because it's not really gay, it's not really lesbian, it's not really, like, what is that? It's just pansexual. Like, you are a person, regardless what's in your pants, I'm going to love you. That's what I do.
That's excellent. It's interesting. because in many ways you're an outsider. Was there some issue with the kind of teachings in Christianity, kind of, or any homophobia there? And also the other thing I'm really curious about is you joined the military, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm like, particularly around like the idea of masculinity and things like. So I've got two questions there. So
Yeah.
was being queer an issue when kind of growing up and with Christianity, and how was that in the military?
Growing up queer in Oklahoma means, what it looked like for me is that I totally removed the possibility that I could be queer.
Oh,
Yeah.
what does that do to a young
Yeah.
person?
It's like the best example that I found is like, can you imagine being a little boy in Ireland or like Texas, in their big agricultural towns, and some it's horses and sheep and like a lot of livestock, and somebody says to them, you could be vegan, and they're like, no, I can't. Do you
Yeah,
see where I live? I can't be vegan here. So it's like that. It was like that for me. Grew up in a church that it's like masculinity on steroids.
yeah.
And then you get called that. You get called a fag, or you're a sissy, or you're gay, and you get called, and you ask yourself, am I in that right then moment, because you're surrounded by sheep and cows and goats? You're like, hell no, there's no way I could be that. And so it wasn't until much, much, much later that I finally even allowed myself to be in a space where I said, let me really find out if I am. Like, just let's just go there. Let's just have a little journey. And I was shocked when the first day I was like, wow, I like to see pretty guys.
Sure.
But then for me, it was like, but I also like seeing pretty women.
Mm.
And so I initially came out as being bisexual. But then when I learned there was a term called pansexual, I was like, that is so me. Because I've been to drag shows, and I would be like, wow, that's a beautiful drag queen. And they're like, so what are they? Are they, they transitioning? Are they this? I'm like, I don't care what they are. Look at them. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
So that never bothered me. So yes, growing up um, within my context and my experience of being Christian, you did not allow yourself to be that. And then also because I know what it's like for me to experience someone else having the gay prayed away.
Yeah, of course.
So that looks like being in a church for an hour, hour and a half, with multiple people laying hands on you in a semi-violent way in an effort to cast a demon out of you so that you can be more like them. They say so that you can be more like God or more like Christ. But what's really happening, they want you to be more like them. And so for an hour, you could be literally on the altar getting purged of your sinful ways. And so, as if you are a little boy or a little girl and you're watching this thing over and over, you probably should not say anything to anybody that you could be that way, or change your behavior so that you can fit in more.
I'm so uncomfortable even just hearing that happens. Like I feel pain in my chest. It's like, yeah, I can't even imagine. And so how did you make the decision to join the military? Was that just a way to travel, kind of get out of Oklahoma?
Oh no, so I graduated high school. I immediately was accepted to a university called Oklahoma State University. While my first semester at Oklahoma State, I am literally in my dorm, and 9/11 happens my first semester at Oklahoma State. So I watched the Twin Towers come down while I'm in college. Okay. So of course I know about, we're being deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, like in the back of my mind, all that's happening. 2 months later, I get my first bill from the university, and it is $7,000.
Right.
I have already maxed out 2 credit cards just to get in school, just to buy my books, just to get my bedding, just to move in. I've maxed out 2 credit cards because I had no scholarships and no one was helping me pay. So I was like, okay, I'm sitting on the bed. I can remember looking out the window, watching people go to class. I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? $7,000. I don't even know how to get $7,000. And my mind eventually went to, oh, there's a commercial that says the military will pay for your school. So I got in the car. I was driving a white Lincoln Town car at that time, 1998. And I went to a shopping center, like a strip mall. So like all these businesses are connected in this one row. And then all the businesses are nothing but military recruiters. So you had the Navy recruiter, the Army recruiter, the Marine recruiter, like they're all there. And so I knock on everybody's door. They're all gone because it's lunchtime. And I finally get to the last door, and it's the Oklahoma Army National Guard. I walk in, I say, hey, so I hear you pay for school. They say, yes, we do. Sit down. So we had a little conversation. And then he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, in the military, everything that's in the civilian world, we do in the military. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, let me tell you this part. All that stuff on TV, like all that shoot 'em up, bang, bang, like charge, all that stuff. I'm not doing none of that. Don't even ask me. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I said, so what do you got besides that? He said, you can be a cook or you can be in supply. I said, what supply? He said, that's logistics. So you learn about logistics, about purchasing and moving things. I said, well, I already know how to cook because I'm the oldest of 5 kids. I've been cooking since I was 11. So I guess I do supply and logistics. And that has made all the difference. So 18 years of being in government logistics, I am very well validated, well known, well spoken in that language of government logistics. I've been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait. I've been to that part of the world about 6 or 7 times by now. Yeah, and it allows me to help my entrepreneur clients, because when we're talking about sales and marketing and finance and operations, especially the operations piece. And I'm like, okay, well, how are you going to get this thing to your customer? What's the supply chain look like? I can speak intelligently where a lot of other people only guess.
Yeah, that's superb. And how was it being so when did you start identifying, I guess, as bi, and how was that in the military? How's it being like a queer Black man in the military?
So for a lot of the time I was in the military, for a significant amount of time that I was in the military, first starting off, I was married to a woman.
Okay.
So my son's mother, I was married to her. We were married for 6 years, together for 10. And then we divorced. And so by the time I divorced, let's see, we got married 2003, we divorced 2009. So 2009, I start questioning, like, okay, what am I really? So around, we get to 2015, so 5 or 6 years worth of conversation and experiences, I actually fall in love with a guy.
That's amazing.
I fall in love with a guy in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm the type of person since I was like 6, if I love you, I love out loud. Like I'm definitely PDA, like I'm doing public display of affection. I want to hold your hand. I want to pat your butt. Like all that's me. I want to do all that in real life all the time to you. And because I was feeling that way, I was like, I don't desire to be fraudulent in my love. And I don't want to keep anybody a secret. Because when you grow up Black in Oklahoma and you sometimes are attracted to white people, they will keep you a secret so their family doesn't know because you're Black. So I don't ever want to make anybody feel like that. So I decided to come out to friends and family because of that reason, because I was in love. And it happened. And of course, I'm still in the military. I'm actually stationed at a military base in Texas while I'm doing this. And this is before the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Right.
Right.
Can you actually, I know a little bit about that. Can you just explain what that is?
Yeah. So there had been a way of life, a way of being in the military in the United States, where if you were queer, and that's when it had a very negative context. If you were queer, you were kicked out, point blank, period. And then the 90s came, the 80s and the 90s came, and it's like this new thing, like we should be able to serve. And so then Bill Clinton, while he was president, he was like, well, I'm gonna make this better. How about if I don't ask you, you don't tell me? So it was literally, you couldn't ask anybody if they were. If they were, they were, but it didn't, like, it was like, nobody needs to know that. But when you have that type of legislative pull, or you have that type of law, it allows who you are to be denied and to be a secret. Yeah. It would be like you having a girlfriend or a wife be told, no one needs to know that. No one needs to see that. And you're like, wait, this is my person. Like, we have a child together. What are you talking about? No, no one needs to see that. You need to put that away and only do that at home. And we don't need to hear about it, see it, or anything. It's like, but that's a part of my life, a big part of my life. And so that doesn't feel amazing. It doesn't. So that's what Don't Ask, Don't Tell was. Don't ask, don't tell. So, but the thing about it is, once you found out though, once your command found out that you were, that was still grounds for removal of the military. So I know what it's like to be in Afghanistan, have a friend of mine who's a woman get found out that she has a girlfriend or has been engaging in sexual activity with another woman, and she gets kicked out of Afghanistan, and she calls me to drive her to the airport and pack her bag because no one else will. Like that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And so I just knew better. So I would just hang on the fringes, even though I would go to gay bars at night and all that. I couldn't talk about it. So then Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. By this time, I am, what rank am I? I'm a first lieutenant. So I'm an officer. But again, I'm not really telling people about it. And so it took some time. It took some time for me to actually come out to people around me. But now it's just like, this is what I am. If you like it, okay. If you don't like it, okay. I don't live based on your acceptance of me.
No, totally. That's a really powerful to learn. And how did you have to do any work or research to kind of find that strength or epiphany that, you know, what other people think is kind of nothing to do with us?
I did. By that time, I had become a coach.
Yeah.
I became a coach around 2012, 2013. Mm-hmm. And yeah, by that time I had done that. And so I had been going to conferences, having transformational experiences, having self-talk about what it means for me to feel worthy, mm-hmm. what it means for me to feel complete, and all of those type of things. So I was building the person that I could truly become, and I didn't even know it.
Absolutely.
It wasn't on purpose. It was so, I wish I could say, oh yeah, I knew what I wanted to be and I just went after it. And I read this book and I saw this movie. No, I was becoming in the background of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of time when you look back, it almost, well, for me anyway, it almost looks like there was a plan. It's, oh wait, I did like martial arts and I learned that lesson and I started reading Stoicism. But at the time I was just winging it. I was just like reading and whatever. But looking back, I can kind of join the dots. It's
Right. It wasn't until the last four, no, three, 3 years. The last 3 years of my life have been the most magical.
Nice.
Because once you do that whole existential angst, dark night of the soul, and you go there and you shed off all remnants of who you were or who you are trying to become
Yeah.
that don't fit you, and you have that and you're left almost naked and exposed to life and
Yeah.
to what life can be, then you start wondering, okay, who am I really?
Yeah.
When someone says, who is Asa Leveaux?
Mhm.
Can I finally stop saying a black man? Because I am so much more
Yeah, of
than
course.
that. Because my thing is, a lot of times when we're asked the question of who we are, we identify or confirm our shell
Yeah. Now labels, right?
in the label. So my shell is black. My shell is a man. My shell is Pan. But who was I before I entered this physical space?
What I like about that line in particular is that goes back to us talking about religion. Like it does feel like we're like spiritual beings having a physical
Yes.
experience. And so when you realize that this is just like a shell, I love that phrase, that means that potentially when this is over, I'm going somewhere. And that's beautiful. And that feels, from my experience, of being in the universe, that feels right to me right now. Like that you just move on somewhere. It's
You move, you go back to the limitless and abundant,
yeah,
all knowing that you are embodied and imbued with love,
yeah,
positivity, abundance, awareness. And yeah, because if you think back as far as you possibly can, there is this vastness about your experience that did not feel like you were in fact a little person inside of another person. Even before that, if you really connect to that, do your best to, wow, you were like attached to all that there was and
yeah,
all that there will ever be, and that you're going to go back to that.
yeah.
And so within the last 3 years, I started reading books by Neville Goddard and Abraham Hicks and thinkers on that particular plane that were suggesting to me, and this may be a little bit difficult for some, and this may be very expansive for others. I get that, but I'm not saying it to be controversial. I'm really not. But what they were teaching and are teaching, and now that I understand, you are not here to worship something that is mad with you all the time.
Mm.
You are here to understand your divinity itself. But divinity from what way? Divinity in the way of, if you, where you are, Darren, if you look around you right now, you're in a building
Mhm.
and there are things on your wall. There are things that you are sitting on. So everything that we're looking at right now was based once upon a time in somebody else's imagination.
Yeah, sure.
So with that being said, we are literally sitting in somebody else's world.
Mm. Yeah,
When you start to understand your divine power, you start to realize I have the power to create worlds for myself and for others.
hmm,
So what am I going to do with that power?
yeah,
And that's how you know you're divine. And that's how I now am. I now wake up knowing and go to sleep knowing. My day is based on how I want it to be and how I design it to be. All I do is create. I create every single, but we all do. But when we don't understand what power we have, we allow ourselves to be inputted into somebody else's idea of what creativity is for us without saying, wait, I have a role to play here. I am also just not an actor. I am also the producer, the writer, the director, the backstage, even the audience. all at the same time. I don't have to just be an actor in somebody else's play. I can write the doggone thing.
I like existing in other people's imaginations, and I think I love the power of imagination flat out, but also this idea that our minds and our thoughts create our own prison. Like we basically imagine our own prison and we lock ourselves in it. And unless you can, and again, following the keyhole kind of metaphor, we're looking through this little prison window with bars on, or Plato's cave, or whatever, or the Matrix. Like people, all this language is becoming quite common now. But I still think, and I'm still learning, but I still think we don't quite understand just how powerful we are with our thoughts and how much we can impact those around us. It's,
so true. And that's why I wanted to come on and talk to you. When you said that that was the premise of your talk, I was like, ooh, I think he gets it. And even so, I'm really into now reimagining every single thing that I hear, think, see, feel, and touch. So when I read that about your show, about how you can look through a keyhole, in that moment, I understood your intention. And then the way I reimagined it was, we're not just looking through a keyhole. We created the keyhole.
yeah. Or going back to what you were saying earlier, it was also crafted by our childhood experiences, and a lot of that kind of coaching thing is like pulling stuff off of us. It's like, oh, that came from my parents, that came from school. It's like let's shed all this. Now, who am I underneath? And
right.
That's phenomenal too. I'm aware time is cracking on, but I do want to ask, particularly in terms of storytelling and the media you've consumed. Although I did mean to say, when you mentioned drag queens, and you were saying you're just attracted to pretty people, watching RuPaul's Drag Race at times is very confusing for me because.
Oh, tell me about it. I would so like to help you with the confusion.
There's been a few episodes where you think, wow, she is beautiful, and then you realize it's a guy kind of dressed as a woman. But even so, it's like, if I met her in a club,
right,
like,
right. But my thing is, but thank you for just being honest and saying it, because I feel, and my experience has been, when a cisgendered heterosexual man sees someone, they're like, wow, they're really attractive, and then you realize, oh no, they're the same sex. They just created something different for this moment. And guess what? You're still heterosexual.
yeah.
And it's still okay. All you did was say another human was really attractive in that moment.
Yeah.
And you don't have to kill that part of who you are by hurting yourself or by hurting them.
Shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, I always, when I struggle to kind of understand homophobia, I always kind of think what's annoying is I always think that if they could just watch RuPaul's Drag Race and realize that these, you a fan of that? No, I'll come back to that.
It's not, RuPaul's Drag Race is not medicine for heterosexual people.
Oh, that's a really powerful statement. That's
interesting. It's not. Because that then gives the idea that somehow heterosexual people are all the same, that heterosexual people are monolithic, and that no one is.
Yeah.
Now, for some, yes. To watch RuPaul's Drag Race is an eye-opener. You're like, oh my God, I didn't know. Yeah. And then sometimes people watch Queer Eye for the straight guy.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh. And then my mother, there's an artist here in the United States who's from New Orleans, and she's called Big Frida. Big Frida has a genre of music that came out, came out of hip hop music, but it's really, really fast. It's like boom, 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 but it's like all about dancing, like it's twerking or dancing. And so Big Frida was born, let me rephrase that. Big Frida entered into this space with a look that says, I am a man. And I'm saying this based on the story that I heard her say in the interview. Came out as a man and still identifies as a man, because but he will still use the pronouns of he and she simultaneously,
Mhm.
but looks almost like that he is transitioning to be a woman. So has long hair, doesn't have breasts, but like, you know, hips and butt like pronounced, and always wearing things that, you know, show those things. And then calls, you know, himself Big Frida, with Frida being a name that is likened to a woman or is known as being a feminine name. So Big Frida is like a walking illustration of blowing your mind, because you're like, okay, are you a boy? Are you a girl? From the context of a heterosexual's language, are you a boy? Are you like, what are you?
Yeah.
And she's just like, look, I'm this. It doesn't mean anything. And it's okay for all of this. And so Big Frida has a television show, and my mother, watching Big Frida, started to understand, oh, if you're homosexual, you just want to be loved.
Wow.
It took her watching that to understand that really all homosexuals want, or anyone in the LGBTQ space want, is to be loved.
Mm,
That's it.
totally.
That's it.
And the media can have a huge impact. And at the same time, I'm aware of like, I became like a media lecturer and a film lecturer, partly because, you know, I grew up loving films, but of course I grew up loving films because all the heroes look like me. You know, I grew up with Indiana Jones and James Bond and Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. And even when I think of cartoons that I watched growing up, it was, you know, predominantly that He-Man was white. It was rare to see anyone who wasn't white, other than maybe in the X-Men. So I'm just curious, when you were growing up, and also into adulthood, did you ever see anything that you thought, oh, that represents me?
First off, thank you for the question. And thank you for your knowledge, and your decision and your choice to wonder about somebody else's experience. I don't feel like that's always done. People don't always consider someone else's point of view from a real place, to the point that you can ask questions and consider things. So thank you for that. Growing up, um, of course, I liked things like A Different World, Martin, Cosby Show, A-Man, The Jeffersons, Good Times. I love those shows, of course, because they do look like me. However, I liked watching shows with predominantly white casts because it allowed me to see into the lives of white people and into the homes of white people, because for some reason my experience was showing me that in I wasn't invited into white people's homes.
Right, sure.
If you're not invited into their homes and they make up the majority of society, you always wonder, like, I wonder why they don't invite me to their house, but they say they like me.
Yeah.
Like I said before in another interview, you want to touch my hair, you want to touch my skin, you even want me to be your boyfriend on the playground, but you will never invite me to your house.
Yeah.
You will never invite me to your birthday party. I will never get an invitation, ever. So when I look at white TV shows growing up, it was from like actually like a scientific experiment. Like I wonder, it's almost like going to the safari. Like I wonder how they do that. So the first time I saw a show like Roseanne,
Nice.
I was totally mind blown. I was like, there's a white people are poor. White people can be poor
Mm-hmm.
and have struggles and not know how to pay a bill and struggle with the different things that our family is. Like the way a lot of white people in America say that the Cosby Show opened their eyes to what Black people could really look like and be like and all those things. That was what Roseanne did to me.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea white people could be poor, because in a lot of times in Black world in the 80s, it was still this language of the man, and that white people have everything. And I wanted to see if it was true. Like, do white people have everything? And then I realized later, white people have everything in different contexts, which is this whole Black Lives Matter now. And what is the context in which they have everything? It's like now I'm clear. What it means now, what it looks like is that saying that white people have the ability, and let's just even go there for a second, the privilege of learning about racism without experiencing it.
Yeah.
That's the privilege in a nutshell. Instead of actually being abused by police, instead of actually being denied for a loan, instead of actually saying, no, you can't come to my house, instead of saying you, your mother, your grandmother, your great grandmother are subservient to the majority of people in society, instead of experiencing those things, you get to learn about it in an elective class at the university.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the privilege. And then I learned my privilege as a man.
Yeah.
That's still real. And then even as a Black man in the United States, because of my social economic level, what I have access to, I'm privileged on that, because there are Black and brown individuals that don't have the level of access that I do, or feel that they don't, or don't have evidence of it. And so now they feel like they need to be enraged. And so people inflict and riot based on the level of their pain. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good statement. It's interesting. Obviously, yeah, you're right. I haven't obviously experienced racism, but it's been interesting in recent years talking more and more about feminism, and just the things I take for granted. That, you know, a woman kind of walking down to a street or going to a bar, going on a date, even the level of precautions they have to take. But even like on a silly thing, I can remember when my then wife and I stayed in like a really swish hotel, like a Hilton or whatever, and we went in, and just this feeling of like, oh, we don't belong here, or they're gonna they're gonna not let us in. Like it's that's like so low down on the level of experiences. But I don't even, if I ever felt like that, like all the time. Oh, it's hard enough to be happy in the world, because the whole system's designed to make us unhappy, so we buy stuff we don't need, and then to have things on top of that, it's hard enough. I guess what I meant by that, which is, I'm not sure this is a good thing to say, but even as a white straight guy, it's hard to find happiness. If you had then any other obstacle on top of that,
and I'm glad you said it, and I honor your experience. I think a lot of time what's happening online right now is that I'll say Black Lives Matter, and then you'll say, I agree with you. And then I'll say, thank you. Then you'll say, can I tell you about my life as a white man, how I feel down too? And then I would say, no, you cannot. But Martin Luther King's quote was, riots are the voice of the unheard. So if Black people are rioting and protesting and all of these things right now because we're feeling unheard, what happens in those moments when white men start to feel unheard? And my thing is, so the conversation I had last night with my white siblings. So in Oklahoma, I asked one of my white friends, I said, can we have a soul session just with white people with me, so that they have a safe space where they can talk, because not everybody is trying to be against us. There are so many that want to be allies, want to love us, they just don't understand everything, and they just want to understand, and I want to create a space for them to understand. During the end of the night, I asked a question, and I said, there are white men here. Hello. And I would like to ask you all something, if you will allow me. They said yes. I said, may I ask how you're doing? I feel that no one's asking how you're doing. And no one is considering that you are a human too. And I would just like you to have space to say how you're doing. because I feel in this moment, in this space, that I have been heard. I feel that there are other people here, types of people here that have been heard, but I don't feel that there's this grand gesture of making sure you all are heard. And the thing about you all, if you guys aren't heard with the amount of privilege and power that you possess in the world now, if you all aren't heard, your riot will look different from
Oof.
ours. And so I am very clear about publicly stating on Facebook posts, like, I love Black women, of course. But I'm also, if you can go search my posts in all the years I've been on, I've also said I love white men. Why? Because just because your ancestors did some things that really didn't do well with mine, but ultimately it doesn't mean you did it too. You may be benefiting in a way that you're maybe not conscious of in the moment from what they did, but you yourself did not do it. And thank you for not doing it. And then thank you for not doing it again like they did. But I do want to make sure that you all are okay, because there's another quote in Black Panther that says, is an African proverb or African phrase: the child that does not feel the warmth of the village will burn the village down to feel the warmth. So if white men don't feel included in this human village, when are they going to burn it down so they feel comforted?
I think feeling discomfort is I guess it's also a privilege to avoid feeling discomfort, but I know in the past that, you know, I've avoided certain subjects, like that, even the movie 12 Years a Slave, which I think got an Oscar. It's very well regarded.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said, oh, have you seen it? I was like, no, I can't deal with it. Like, I know, I understand slavery happened. I don't want to watch it. And even in a more like poppy movie like Django, there's scenes, I can't watch that movie again. Like,
That hot box scene?
the which scene?
The hot box scene, is that what you're talking about?
No, I'd forgotten that one. Yeah, but there's another one where I think they set dogs on a guy, and
so you must be empathic.
Sorry, what do you mean?
Are you empathic?
I
think you're empathic. You don't even know it.
Okay.
May I tell you what that means?
Yeah, of course.
I am highly empathic, by the way.
Okay.
Have you ever been on a train or the tube, and you were sitting next to a stranger and you could feel their anger or their frustration or their sadness?
Yeah, I kind of thought we all could.
No. It's literally a human superpower.
I see it, just that you can feel their energy, right? It's just you.
Everybody doesn't have that ability. Like, it's really called being empathic.
Okay.
Like, you aren't able to watch slave narratives. You probably don't do horror movies either, do you?
No.
You're empathic, sir.
I'm going to research more about this. This sounds intriguing.
The first time I've ever seen empaths depicted on film was in Avengers.
Oh, nice.
So when they were, bringing all the different, parts of what it means to be a Marvel comic, when they were bringing all these people, there was an Asian-looking being who was painted green, who had little antennas on her head, but her introduction to it, and they said, well, what's your superpower? She says, I'm an empath. And they said, well, what's that? I can feel you without you saying anything to me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're an empath. So I've learned as an empath that I have to create a wall around my energy so everybody can stay the hell out of me.
See, that's really interesting, because when I've struggled with mental, you okay? Okay, I've just got to get some paper for my daughter.
Hey, that's a good thing.
Okay. Yeah. I struggled with mental health issues in my life, and one of the tools that I've used in the recent years is to create like two wolves with my imagination that guard me, and they'll, if I'm ever feeling like drained or something like dark around me, like these wolves just stand next to me or circle me growling, and it goes away.
You are such an empath.
Nice. Okay.
So yeah, I can. I've not been able to. I've not chosen to learn about myself to the level that I can actually tune into other empaths around me. But what I can do, when I allow myself, and that's what allows me to be a good coach. Because I can read a room, not with my eyes, I read a room with my soul.
Right.
And while I've been talking to you, I've been watching you read my soul this entire time. And I've been wondering, how was he able to do this? No, seriously, I've been wondering, how have you been able to do this? Because you haven't said that you were an empath, and I read your stuff before, and I'm like, he hasn't saying it, but he's doing it. That's what you are. You are an empath. And first off, welcome. And no, it's not an every person thing. Because I've had relationships where I've had an ex-girlfriend and she would be sitting next to me and I would be quiet and I would look at her and she's literally sitting there. And I say, will you do me a favor? And she was like, what? I said, will you be quiet? She said, Asa, I'm not saying a word. I said, but your mind is going nuts right now. You are so all over the place in your mind. It is ridiculous. I need you to quiet your mind. I feel the energy of your brain. Literally. And then one other I remember having a first date with a guy. He came over to my apartment. He sat down and he's talking about whatever. And I said, may I ask you a question? We're on my couch. We're about to go eat. And I said, may I ask you a question? He said, sure. I say, how long has it been hurting? He said, what did you just say to me? I said, I don't mean to be rude to you, but how long has it been hurting? And he burst into tears. I've known this person for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know where that came from. I'm so sorry. I said, you may not know this about me, but just know that you are in probably the safest place to cry right now. Like the safest. He said, how did you do that? I said, well, actually I didn't do anything. I let you know that I can feel you. Like I can literally feel all of your angst, all of your challenges, like that's right there on the surface that you think you can smile over. I know that. I can feel it easily. It's like being bilingual.
Is it something, do you think, that you're born with, or is it something you can evolve through kind of meditation?
I think it's born. Do you remember Michael Jackson Thriller?
Yeah.
Okay, Michael Jackson Thriller. We all know that, well, I eventually knew that that's just a music video. Do you know that when it came out, when I was watching it when I was like 11 or 10, that all of my siblings and all of my cousins, we would be at my grandma's house and they would be in the back room watching music videos. But when Thriller came on, I asked my grandma, could I sit with her until that video went off because I couldn't handle it.
Sure. Well, okay.
That's what it's like growing up empathic.
Yeah. So interesting. When you said, I bet you don't like horror movies, I was just like, wait. No. And I find it really weird when people do, particularly the tortury ones, like the
Yep. And babies like you, don't they?
Yeah.
And dogs rarely bite you if the dog is, because sometimes dogs have just been treated really, really badly and they're like junkyard dogs and they're just vicious. Yeah. But for the most part, pets enjoy your company.
Yeah, but I feel like I do that. I kind of, it's going to sound, we're going off on a tangent, but I surround myself with white light, I slow down my energy, and I'm just like, like, you know, Crocodile Dundee style, just like.
Because you're an empath.
Okay. Well, this conversation went in an amazing roller coaster of subjects and topics. It's been absolutely superb talking to you. And we have, in my head, I was like, oh, a podcast, 30 minutes, it'd be like the commute kind of traveling time. But I think we've hit like an hour, and I really, really.
No problem. No problem.
If anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to connect with you?
So if you're listening or watching, my name again is Asa Leveaux, and that's spelled ASALEVEAUX. If you are military oriented, that's spelled Alpha Sierra Alpha Lima Echo Victor Echo Alpha Uniform X-ray. You can find me on everything. The beautiful thing about my name is that I am the only one.
Yeah.
I am the only Asa Leveaux. Period.
Is the Leveaux, is that French? Is that kind of got a French background?
Yeah, Creole.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah. So I'm Asa Leveaux, but if you go to aceleveaux.com, you can get to me any way you want to get to me. On aceleveaux.com, I make sure that there are links for everything.
Superb. Thank you so much for your time. I'll stop the recording now. And if you've got any, to our listeners, if you've got any questions, wherever you find this, just pop them in the comments, and I'll try and pass them on and answer them. Thanks so much.
Most welcome. Thank you.